Howdy, folks. Today we're asking a very bold question. Are cameras becoming obsolete? With technology moving faster than ever, AI tools, computational photography, and smartphones pushing boundaries, where does that leave traditional cameras? And what does the future look like for photographers like us? We'll be diving deep into this fascinating topic with none other than the man himself, Vanelli, right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, the podcast where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most renowned photographers of our time, giving you access to knowledge and expertise that's not available anywhere else. As always, I'm your host, Kirsten Nuts, and if you're like me and you enjoy free podcasts and YouTube content, you can support the show by buying us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/camera shake. To get it? Buymeacoffee.com buymeacoffee.com/camera shake. And that would help us keep these conversations going. And whilst you're at it, make sure you subscribe to our mailing list at camerashakepodcast.com so you never miss an episode or special update, of which there will be some coming your way very soon. Now, let's find out if cameras are really on their way out. Vanelli, man, how's it going?
Hey, great to see you. So this is going to be a great topic. I'm glad you had me on the show for this one.
Yeah. I mean, I remember having a conversation only it's like a week or so ago with my youngest daughter, and she was actually assisting me on a shoot, you know, and I was teaching her. It was a video shoot, and I was teaching her. We were shooting stuff with a Nikon Z8, for example. I was teaching her, how to operate the camera, and she at some point she said to me like, this is so much easier on an iPhone. Do you think cameras will be obsolete soon? And I thought,
Well,
oh.
isn't that what they said about these? This is my father's camera.
Yes,
And you know
exactly.
what's so funny about that? On his 90th birthday, he's a deacon in the Catholic Church. So, of course, we always had the parties in the basement of the church.
Of course.
Horribly lit. It's a basement. Huge. It's a basement.
Yeah.
My father turned to my son and winked and said, then looked at me and said, Robert, for my birthday present, what I would love for you to do, he hands me this camera. It says, take my birthday present, my birthday photos with this. And I went, huh. And my son goes, Papa, you know what he's going to do? He's going to take his digital camera, get the meter reading, and then dial it in to the side. And I'm like, darn right. Or I'm going to go over and get my light meter, and I'll do some quick metering. I go, there is no way. I'm sorry. I think I'm a hell of a photographer. There's no way I'm in a chance. My father's photos, 90th birthday party, on a piece of gear I know nothing about. So our cameras will be obsolete? Never. Cameras will never be obsolete. The format, iPhone, Android phone. Heck, you saw that I got the new Meta glasses.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those are so cool. As for content creators, I put those on for a sunrise shoot. Click. And I started recording, hey guys, so here I am, about to do a sunrise shoot. It's blah, blah, blah. Right now we're in blue hour. We're going to, and then all of a sudden, you would guess it, a beautiful couple sits right in my shot. And I'm like, are you serious? So instead of getting upset, I embraced it, but I started taking pictures with the Meta glasses. And I'm like, dang. Now, if I had to take my camera off the tripod, or even if I had a spare camera, you know how complicated that is. Heck, I'd put it in auto mode or auto ISO or something to quickly get the shot. So I ended up saying to the couple, hey, you're watching a beautiful sunrise. Put your arm around her. Give her that kiss. Give her a hug. You're taking our picture, aren't you? Yup. Cameras are not going to ever be obsolete. Pro level cameras. That's what you have to decide. But like you said, your daughter, I guarantee if you let your daughter use her iPhone or whatever mobile phone she has, she would have gotten incredible shots more so than with the Z90 because of the learning curve.
Yeah.
If you have a trainer on that Z90, then not Z90, the Z, what was it?
That's a Z8. Yeah.
Z8. If you had a trainer on that Z8, the amount of time it would take. Now, to my opinion, will they get better shots in the future once they go pro with a pro camera or pro consumer? By all means. But we've had this debate before. I've had pro photographers. The arrogance. Oh, those are mobile photography. They have nothing to do with that. They should never be allowed in photography. Oh, really? And I said, okay, so I just noticed something. What? When you did your behind the scene photos, you used your iPhone. I'm confused. I thought you said it has no bearing on photography. You should have seen their face. They're like, you called me out. Yes, I did. Because what's wrong? Stop being a purist. Stop being so arrogant to think they're going to replace it. In fact, I just told you before the show, my friend Chef Tony, Cedars Cafe, she called me up. Hey, Vanelli, I have an incredible duck I want you to try. I have an incredible hamburger. It's a lamb burger made with lamb.
Mm.
She sent me these photos and she goes, I want you to take the photos of these. It was an already done ad. I said, Tony, who did this? I did. She knows how to plate food. She's technically a food stylist. She's the chef. She put that food on that plate. Incredible. I said, how did you light it? Oh, a natural light. She went by the window, took her iPhone, snap, showed me the before and after. She put it through a program called Photo Room. It's a mobile app, $100 a year. Kirsten, I was in awe. I'm not a food photographer. I said to her, Tony, what's wrong with that? Well, I thought maybe you could do it better. No, with what you just did with it, where are you posting it? Facebook. I'm sending in for a submission for a contest. Well, then why do you need a camera raw, you know, 30, 40 meg file to do this with? You know, with what you have is perfect for social media. It's and you did it faster than I could. By all means, do it. So to say is my job obsolete? No, because if she were the average chef, not you chef, the average foodie who doesn't know how to plate food, doesn't know how to style the food, doesn't know how to use window light, then yes, you need to hire me.
If
Return, right?
if imagine if all the gear that you own today just vanished, and you had to start from scratch. What's the first tool or piece of equipment that you would buy?
Oh, honestly, again, I would go with a very, very solid camera, spend more money on lenses because I love photography. There's a difference. For camera phones are not going to replace sports photography. They can't. There's the sensors and remember I mentioned this to you before. Being a pro doesn't mean being professional. I mean, heck, everyone should be professional and be polite all the time. Being a pro means being proficient. In Tony's world, she's the chef. She knows what the food's supposed to look like. I send her my food photos and she goes, no, zoom out more. She's giving me advice. So now if I had to start all over again with this love of photography, that's what I would do. I would definitely buy a very good camera, but spend more money on the lenses. Now, my goddaughters, well, I have like 13 of them. Um, my goddaughters, two of them are getting heavily into photography now. Well, I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure they love it. I bought them a bridge camera. So they graduated from their iPhones. Now they want to do a lot of nature photography. I bought them a bridge camera under $500. When I could trust you with a little, I'll give you a lot. When I could trust you with a little, I'll give you a lot. You prove to me you have a love for photography, then we'll look into the Nikon cameras, the higher end, and but from now, they graduated from iPhones to bridge cameras. So you have to decide what are you willing to go into. Um, I'll use cooking because that's one of my new passions now. My cousin came over and said, "Oh my God, Robbie!" And by the way, my relatives call me Robbie. The world calls me Vanelli. They still call me Robbie. Um, so they used my chef knife, and it's a famous chef, Bobby Dale, Bobby Day. I am so apologize. Um, my friend sent me his knives. They are so sharp. And Kirsten, do you know how I know if I'm doing good at cooking? How many cuts I have at the end of the week, and how
Yeah.
many band-aids I use. But no, so my cousin used the knives and he's chopping like this. I chop like this. He could make those cuts with a dull knife, a sharp knife, whatever. He could push it further. So with professional level cameras, a person who loves photography can push it farther. So, photographers, please don't get all upset, especially the pros. They're not going to be obsolete. You're going to be obsolete if you don't embrace new technology. So, did I answer that for you?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We've answered the question. When you first got into photography, um, when you first started with photography, what were the tools of the trade like compared to what they are now?
Oh God. Oh my God. My Android phone takes so much better of a shot than the Kodak digital, the first one I had. The one where you put a CD into the camera itself. And that was your memory card.
Right.
And then when they went to compact flash cards, ooh, that was so cool. Um, but I remember they were a 1 megapixel. They were horrible. I went to a zoo. I went to one of our local zoos. Would you like me to take these photos of these animals? She goes, "Oh yeah, show me what you got." She goes, "Yeah, this isn't the quality we're used to. We're used to pro level film camera that they put through a drum scanner." Well, I could do that, so I used my film camera and just gave her the film. And she goes, "Oh, that's exactly what we needed." Digital wasn't ready then. Nowadays, I guarantee you could take that iPhone or that Samsung Galaxy phone and you could get those shots, and through AI software like, our company, Skylum and Luminar is using, you run it through that AI software for noise reduction, boom, you have a beautiful shot. Now those monkeys are running all over the place. I'm sorry. This There's limitations to this. There's limitations to those meta glasses. So to replace it, no. But in my opinion, the stuff I used back then does not compare to what new photographers are getting into. It's so much easier getting into photography now than it was back then.
You know, the discussion about gear in photography, sometimes because you often have these comments like, "Yeah, photography is dead." Now that everything is on a phone, blah blah blah. I mean, how many times have you heard that? Like, "Oh, photography is dead because, well, all of a sudden we have smartphones. Photography is dead because, well, there's AI." It's every 6 months there's another reason as to why photography is apparently dead. But I always think of other professions that use tools, like carpenters, let's say. You know, Carpenters use, let's say, I don't know, hammers, okay, or a saw. Like now they use power tools, and I wonder, I can't imagine, but I mean, maybe when the first, I don't know, powered saw came out. I don't know, were carpenters hanging around going like run a construction site? We're like, oh, do you know what? Carpentry's dead. That's it.
Carpentry is dead.
Yeah,
Carpentry is dead. The DIYers, yeah, do it yourselves. I always say DIY, do it yourself, DIY. The DIYers getting that increase.
yeah.
Didn't people start becoming doing more stuff at home? Um, Same thing with lawnmowers. Remember that? When we were kids, you needed to make a quick buck, you borrowed your dad's lawnmower.
Yeah.
You mowed the neighbor's lawn. $2. Um, then
Yeah,
once
exactly.
you
Yeah.
started getting once you started getting more clients, your father would say, "Hey, you're using up all my gas. You need to pay for that own gas. You need to consider getting your own lawnmower." Okay, well now you have enough money after a while. If you did monthly mowing, like $10 a mow was like, wow. Then you started buying your own riding lawnmower. Well, look what you just did. You progressed. You progressed. Nowadays, will kids mow lawns? Nope. Why? Because pros are telling you, hey, it's $100 a month. $100 what I pay a month to mow my lawn. There's no way I can get a kid to mow my lawn for $25 a session. They're going to say no way. And there's no way. They're not going to mow, trim, and do weed eating. There's no way they'll do that for $25 a session. But a pro will, and it looks like the lawn was done with it by a pro. So to me, what did that do? It killed the wannabe landscape people. And now so photographers, hang in there because I'm sorry. Can you imagine showing up to a wedding? That's all
Yeah.
I got, right? They're going to look at you and say, "Oh, okay, you're going to get all these shots for me?" Yep, I'm confident. Now, can you get some beautiful shots with your phone? Yes. But the moment they tell you to enlarge it to a 16 by 20, now it all falls apart.
And I think
So,
there's also like a confidence thing. I think if somebody hires you to shoot a wedding and you rock up with a smartphone, the immediate thought in the client's mind will be, well, I could do that myself because I have a smartphone. So there's that sort of um, that connection between kind of pro gear and pro level ability.
yep, I agree. Now, with that being said, my siblings are going to kill me. My sister's retirement party, I just whipped out a GoPro and my Samsung Galaxy. Back then it was the 21, I think it was. I can't remember. But I was doing some stuff for Samsung. I wanted to see, is it the gear or is it the photographer? And she loves them. Now my brother Joe turned 60. He dressed as Willy Wonka. And his grandson, my great nephew, he dressed him up as a Oompa Loompa. The entire theme was Willy Wonka. Everything was Willy Wonka. 60-year-old, he's a grown man, cracked me up. I had to bring out the big guns. I did use my pro gear. Why? Because I wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up. He was only going to have one 60th birthday party. I wanted to make sure, and the people he invited were all over the country. They all showed up. I wanted to make sure I got plus it was outside during the day, beautiful sunlight, Syracuse weather, in July, which meant later in the day it got very hot. Beautiful, beautiful greens all over I wanted to make sure I got that depth of field. I wanted the beautiful bokeh. Knowledge is what gave me those shots. To
Yeah.
this day, his friends are still talking about those photos. Wow, your brother's really good. He should become a pro.
No.
Now, for those that know me, of course, they know what I do, but the ones who didn't know me, his old college friends, kind of a compliment, you know, but I still got beautiful shots for my sister. It's your knowledge. It's the knowledge.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps. This is an interesting conversation I had a little while ago with Jerry Gionis. And I remember he was telling me he at one point he wanted to stretch himself a little bit, and he went to shoot a wedding on Polaroid,
Yep.
which
I
I
remember
thought
that.
was super. That's actually super interesting because it's it's the limitation of that medium that will push your creativity, and that in itself. I mean, a wedding. I don't know. I always say, and I've said this millions of times, probably, or, hundreds of times probably on this podcast. My ultimate nightmare is having to shoot a wedding on film because
Yeah, same here.
because for somebody who's so used to somebody who's so used to having the ability to have that instant feedback on the back of the camera, for example, you know
I,
to think like,
I'm so sorry for saying this out loud, but you know what? I don't know if I would have stuck with photography if digital didn't come along. I want instant gratification. Heck, I'm at my gym in the morning. Oh, wow, Vanelli's number 2 in the rankings. I want instant gratification. Now, my doctor did say to me, because he saw that, Vanelli, I thought you were going to hold on to that competitive streak. And you're right. And doc, I didn't. I was 100 points away from first place. I could have jumped back on those machines, but my workout was done. And I said to my doctor, nope, I stepped away. Instant gratification. It showed me I got done with my exercise. I use my watch. My watch connects it to the app. It tells me what I did last week and what I did this week. And with that knowledge, what did I do? Oh, wow. Huh. Let's increase that by 5 pounds. Oh, I did positive and negative workout. Great. So let me put the positive this weight, put the negatives at this weight. It did it for me. Now I had to do the work, but I didn't have to think about it. So with film, there's too much to think about, in my opinion. When you become a pro, use technology proficiently, like we said. I will put something in auto mode. Something on my camera will be in auto mode, whether it's auto ISO, aperture priority, something. Or if I put it in manual mode, I'll use auto ISO, take my shots, then use exposure compensation because I'm still the creative artist. And then, like you said, a wedding, oh my Lord, I'd be scared to death shooting on film,
yeah, and of course
right?
in many ways it's ridiculous because of course everybody used to shoot weddings on film not too long ago, actually. um but those technologies back in the day obviously had a lot of limitations compared to what we can, what we have the freedom to use today. um but do you think that those limitations fueled creativity, and have we lost some of that
Oh, yeah,
creativity today?
back then they did. People would say, oh, I shot in slide film because it gave me the ability to have a little nudge room in the exposure. If I messed up, I could always adjust it in the darkroom. Okay, what's the difference between that and what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
one guy, one of my friends. So I shot this. I was feeling black and white. This whole shoot screamed and just came to me. The essence was in black and white. And I said, so you forgot to roll the film, the color film? Was, yeah, because I had black and white in the camera already. He goes, and honestly, I didn't want to waste the rest of the film. I only had a couple shots. I was like, you know what? I don't want to waste. It's too expensive. So I shot this whole scene in black and white, and I'm laughing. But what did you do differently? Yes, I had to embrace contrast. So his whole mindset changed. Now with digital, how, let's say, well, yeah, let's say 8 years ago, could you do a lot of the night photography you're doing with the high ISO? Aren't you more confident now doing more night, more dark?
Yeah.
You know, shooting an ISO up to 6400 is nothing now.
Even in even in sports photography, for instance, as I mentioned many times, I shoot a lot of boxing, for example, and sometimes those venues are not necessarily terribly well lit sometimes, and the thing is, you need higher shutter speeds in order to freeze the action. So you kind of you're reliant on relatively high ISOs. 6400 is quite a common ISO that I shoot at in those situations, just to get enough wiggle room with the shutter speed in order to freeze the action. And even then, sometimes I'm in a situation where I have to shoot at 400th, 320th of a second. That's not really fast enough to freeze everything. You still get quite a lot of motion blur. Um,
And sometimes you want the blur, but yeah.
and sometimes you can live with that. It's like I think in boxing in particular, I think when you get to 320,
Oh, forgive
you you have a problem with the sharpness of the images.
yeah.
It's
And you
you
you you can't photograph lacrosse at
yeah.
anything. You could try to photograph it. It's the fastest sport on 2 legs. You try to photograph those guys if you don't work on panning and no, you're right. And by the way, not an ADD moment, but I do wanna say, your portrait stuff, your Hollywood portrait stuff is coming off amazing.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Oh, right when you said boxing, I sort of laughed because now it's a whole new area that you're becoming an expert in, but your portrait stuff that you've been shifting into with the Hollywood glamour stuff, I've been showing Kabasi and a few others. They're like, man, look at this guy go. So I'm glad that you threw boxing in their repertoire also.
Yeah, I mean, boxing. I've been doing boxing for quite a few years. It's kind of a little side hustle sort of a thing that I do. It's for a charity actually. They raise money for cancer research. And for those of you who don't know, my wife had cancer a little while ago, and so I'm happy to. Although I mean I do get paid for those shoots, but it's not a big payer. I mean they raise a ton of money. I mean tens and tens of thousands of pounds actually per event for cancer research, and it's a charity that needs it because there's a lot of it going around right now. Um, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, the other reason I do it is because it does challenge me creatively and technically, as a photographer. And I do believe that it's good to step out of your comfort zone and just be challenged, And I remember the first few years that I shot boxing because I don't shoot a lot of boxing events. I mean, maybe I shoot 6 events a
Mhm.
year or something like that. But like you learn on the hoof, as they say, on the job. And you come back and you look at the images the first few times, you go, shoot, that's not great.
If
Um,
only I did this.
if only, exactly, yeah,
But then you learn from it. You learn from your
yeah,
mistakes,
absolutely,
right?
yeah. That's the thing, and also, sometimes because occasionally there are two rings operating in tandem, and so there might be another photographer who maybe has some more experience, shooting the other ring, and it's really good to exchange experiences and just go, "Hey, how do you do?" If you come across this, I remember when it's actually only a couple of years ago when a lot of boxing events they switched to LED lighting, so the way that they light the rings, right? Um, but occasionally, whatever company supplies the hires out the ring or the lighting, whatever. Occasionally, they really skimp on the quality of these LEDs. And I remember shooting one event, and I look at my camera, and literally every other frame is black. And I'm like,
What
"What?
the
What's going on?" And of course, at first, I'm thinking, "Oh no way, my camera's broken." Oh man.
I put it in
Until
bracketing. Yeah,
I realized it's not me; it's
the
the damn
light.
lights. Well,
Yep, you're right. And so again, you have to maneuver through that. Now, of course, you're sitting down. Guess where I'm going tomorrow? My other goddaughter loves butterflies.
Oh.
We're going to a butterfly garden.
Oh, cool, okay.
Now, South Florida. My cousin Marianne's going with me. So I reached out to a good buddy of mine who does this all the time and said, "Hey, do you want to come with us?" Oh my God, yes. So they're all excited. I'm going to bring an experienced person who always photographs butterflies. I used AI, I used ChatGPT. Hey, what's the most basic gear I can bring to photograph these butterflies? Because I don't want to disturb the guest because it's a big place. No tripods, none of that stuff. It came back and said you can get decent shots with your mobile phone.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But if you want professional level shots, it's best to bring a macro camera, or macro lens rather,
Yeah.
um, and it knows my gear. So I probed all my gear into it, and it says, well, you have the Nikon 105Z Z lens, 105 macro lens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring that. Then it also said, don't forget, you also have a 24 to 200. Bring that so you can get wider shot. It's telling me what I already knew, but how cool is that? That
Yeah, it's amazing.
that technology is helping us. So of course I went online and I looked at what other people photographed at that butterfly world. And I am, and now that we had this conversation, I'm going to use my cell phone in a couple shots.
I used ChatGPT to, basically, give me a little mock-up of a shot that I had in mind. So, one and, it's basically it had to do with frozen fruit, and I had an idea in my mind as to what I wanted to do, um, but I just needed to run through the procedure of actually creating the prop that I needed to create, right? Or the subject itself, because I wanted to have different types of fruits frozen, suspended in ice in a way that they were like it would look like they're tumbling down, right? So the question was like, how do I make this? And it literally, I basically input my idea, and it literally came out with a whole plan. It's like, okay, you gotta freeze it in layers. You do it like this, and it came out with a visual mock-up. And I'm like, this.
So here's the thing with that, Kirsten. Who programmed that to do that? Not AI. AI didn't program itself to do that. So you know what it did? It did what you and I would do. Hey, Kirsten's Vanelli, bud. Hey, listen, you know those new portraits you've been doing? Didn't I just do this? How did you make the light look 3D? How many lights did you use?
Yeah.
Right? And what did you do? You came back. So is your new name ChatGPT? Didn't I call you up and say,
Yeah.
what did you do different with this portrait? You said, "Oh, Vanelli, thanks for asking. I'm glad you noticed." What was it? Like you used something like a 5 or 6 light setup?
It's a 5 light setup, yeah.
You did a 5 light setup. I'm like, "Oh, I got the first 3 what you did. What'd you do with those other 2? Oh, I did this, and that." That is so cool. Isn't it the same thing I would have done? Hey, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
how do I suspend frozen food for a photography shoot? Somebody in this world has done that shoot.
Yeah.
Somebody in this world had done something similar to what you're asking it to do. It just piece it. It's not a miracle, people, right?
Although
It
I
did
think
the same thing that you and I would do.
so my ChatGPT is
Those who to
actually
ask the right question too.
I'll tell you what, my ChatGPT has given itself it picked itself a nickname. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. It
What's
wants to be
that?
it wants to be called Buddy.
It actually asked you that?
Yeah, it actually asked me that. I mean,
Well, I will tell you. So in my cooking, I created something called the Holy Trinity: flaxseed, chai seed, and nutritional yeast.
okay.
Now, being a good, strong Catholic boy, a good Catholic altar boy, using the word Trinity, Holy Trinity, I'm like, ah. I labeled it Holy Trinity, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT made a comment to me and said, "Hey, did you know if you added hemp heart seeds to your holy trinity, you would call it the holy quartet. And it's going to help you with your inflammation because it knows I had hip replacement, both hips. It'll help you with the it'll help you with the anti-inflammatory, inflammation. It'll help you with your blood circulation. Give me all this list, and it gives a nuttier umami flavor. And if you do it just right, there'll be no change in your taste. ChatGPT told me that suggestion.
So if you look back over your career, what is the one piece of technology or equipment that's have changed everything for you?
Oh God, well, definitely AI. Digital, of course, because like I said, I don't know if I would have been, I don't know if I'd still be a photographer if digital didn't come along. Um, but definitely AI has influenced me as an artist, as a photographer, and also as an educator. So I would definitely have to say that piece of technology and gear as a photographer to enhance and help me, um, definitely helped out tremendously.
Yeah. Do you sometimes think like when because this is how I this is what happens to me. Like, once in a while something comes out, some new technology, and I'm thinking, whoa, is this the future of technology? That's incredible. AI being one of those. But this like over the last, I don't know, over the last 10 years or something, there's been a number of those occasions. I mean, mirrorless would have been one, for example. You know, when mirrorless cameras, and I remember it really vividly, actually. I remember, when Sony was all in with mirrorless and Nikon and Canon had nothing on the market, and they were like sort of limping behind. Um, and and I remember at the time I was a little bit insecure. I used to think like, well, why? I mean, if this was really the future of photography, then surely they would be competing in that field, and they're not. And so I was like, well, but then I remember when when Canon first brought out the first mirrorless camera, which I think was it the RP? Was that what it was? I can't remember. But I remember that was a moment where I thought like, okay, well, this is definitely the future of photography. Nobody was talking about AI back then, by the way. That wasn't even the
No.
thing, you know.
Well, I mean, there are fads, and then there are. One of my biggest pet peeves is when not photographers, I'm talking educators, when somebody's teaching photography and they don't know how to hold a camera. That drives me. It drives me insane. I'm going to talk to Imaging USA that on their cover they have a person holding the camera wrong. You are the premier educators for photography. For the love of God, it drives me insane. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but if you don't know how to hold a camera and you're a pro, what else don't you know? Right?
Yeah, that's a good
You
point. Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because that's the most simplest thing. I can understand if they don't understand other things being a professional, or I should be being a person who's making a living, a working photographer, I should say. If you're a working photographer, learn your tools. So, what's a fad versus what is going to be a staple? You learn the basics like a expert. You learn them like an expert. You can break them as an artist. You learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them as an artist. So you need to make sure you know those rules. What are the fundamentals? What is going to make this look incredible? Do you remember for the longest time the fad because of Ann Getty, I believe? Uh, the entire image is black and white, but then she painted the heart in red or the
Oh,
children's
color
hands.
pops is I
Now
think what they
back then
call
it
it. Right?
looked beautiful. Then it
Yeah,
got overused.
I know.
HDR was so overused. Now you mention HDR and people look at you like you have three heads. My sports grid look technically is HDR. The Skylum, our company, just happened to put the dramatic tool built right into our program now. Slide it, there's structure, there's the grit look, desaturation, one slider, it looks amazing. But HDR got a worse bad reputation because people over abused it. And it looked cool. It looked cool. Now
Yeah.
you look at it and go, "Oh my god, what was I thinking?"
Well, the
Um,
clarity slider, do you remember when the clarity slider first came out in Lightroom? It
yep,
was the same thing. Everybody was like, "Oh, we're going all the way to +30 or whatever it is." It's like, "Oh
and
my
that was
god."
part of my grit look. That was part of
Yeah.
Joel Grimes' grit look. And then what happened? You realize, ugh, you look back and what it's like the bell bottom pants in the middle '80s when my mother tried convincing me,
Yeah.
or my sister tried convincing me, "No, they look good on you." Uh-huh. They were so out of style.
Ugh.
But that's what we had. I had hand-me-downs. Um, thank God I never did the mullet days. I did do the don't show the ears, always have the hair just above the ear. What's a fad and what's gonna last forever? What's timeless? Audrey Hepburn, her images, they look timeless. She had elegance about her, black and white photos. She has yeah, you've been getting into a lot of the, Hollywood glamour.
Yeah.
They're timeless. They span multiple generations. Ozzy Osbourne, for God's sake,
Yeah.
you know, they span multiple generations.
That's
So,
see, this is a conversation again I had with my daughter the other day. She goes like, "Why do you like these black and white?" So we were talking about movies. This is an interesting thing. We were talking about movies, and I really like old movies. It's just a thing that I have. I like old movies. I like black and white images. I like black and white movies, and I also like Technicolor movies from the like 50s, for example. Because they had this, the way they overpronounced the reds and the greens. There was just something to it. The skin tones were special. It's just I don't know. I just like that look. And I like watching those movies. We were talking about it, and she goes like, "Why do you like these black and white movies? There's not even color in it, Like, what's the point?" And I said, like, because they're timeless. It's exactly that. They just have a timeless quality. And I convinced her. I couldn't quite convince her to watch a black and white movie with me, but I did convince her to watch The Birds
oh my god.
by Hitchcock. Yeah, by Alfred
I
Hitchcock.
still have nightmares. I still have nightmares here in Florida with birds.
Yeah, but, it's an interesting thing because you watch that movie now, and of course it's always shot in the 50s, right? I mean, you know, uh, but there are so many timeless, aspects to it, you know? There's there's so many aspects to it that are also clever in terms of filmmaking. There's a thing I was discussing with her, because 'cause we've just been watching Vertigo, and so in Vertigo, there are a lot of elements that are really deliberate, things like the color of the dress the leading lady wears, things like that. They're very deliberate because they have an underlying message that carries throughout the movie, because that dress will become important later on in the movie, and you watch the first 90% of it without really realizing it and things like that. You know, they're just a lot of these sort of overriding, almost like timeless aspects to it. And it was when we were watching Birds, I think it really clicked with her because she would have never watched a movie from that period or from that era, had it not been for me explaining the ins and outs of it. And she actually got really quite interested. It was just very interesting.
Since you pick up those little things that they did. My son, when he was little, we're talking 5 to 7, 5 to 8 years old, we got into this huge Get Smart and F Troop when they were in photograph, the old movie, your old icons, Bewitched.
Oh
We
yeah.
watched all these old movies, these old TV shows in black and white. And when they went to color, he said, "Wait, what? How come they're in color now?" "Oh, because the time changed." And he's like, "Oh, I like the black and white ones better." But it was different. But some people hate, like, "I'm so sorry. No, I cannot do captions. I'm sorry. Nope. I'd rather see the people's mouths do weird things. I just don't, I can't read and watch at the same time. I'm sorry, I can't."
Yeah.
So, no, so you as a photographer, maybe black and white doesn't appeal to you. Then don't shoot in black and white. The high contrast stuff really gets you then photograph what you love.
Exactly. And this is the beauty. The beauty about art is that, there's so many different varieties and so many different variations of a thing, that there's something for everybody. And it's again, I'll come back to my children. I had a conversation with my stepson the other day about exactly that. There's like, so my daughter, she likes drawing, and we were working on a project for her school, where she had to draw fruit. That was the art project, and they were allowed to draw from a photograph, but only if they had taken that photograph themselves. Okay, so she came to me and she goes like, "Oh, can you take a photograph of fruit, that she could use as a basis for a drawing?" So anyway, that's what we did, which is a fun little project. But then my stepson said, "Well, I don't like drawing. I like sculpturing." That led to this whole discussion of like, isn't art wonderful because there's something different for everybody? You don't like drawing? Don't draw. You like making sculptures? Make sculptures. Awesome, brilliant.
Well, this is awesome. Hey, that was a great question. I'm so glad we talked about this topic.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Um, I want to talk a little bit about smartphones because this is the other thing, of course, that you come up against nowadays. A lot is this whole smartphone thing. Cameras are dead, or basically photography is dead. Once again, because everybody now has a smartphone in their pocket. Um, and I think without a doubt, if you think about like if you ask like what is the most widely used camera today, it's without a shadow of a doubt a smartphone camera. No doubt, because everybody carries that around. Um, at all times. It's much more readily accessible than even these what were they called? What are they called? The camera, the one-time cameras you could get back in the 90s. The instant cameras. You basically it's like you found them on every single wedding table.
No, you're 100% correct. Look in the US, every playground from the inner city to the suburbs, you name it, they have basketball courts. How many basketball teams do we have in the United States? Not that. I mean, for the amount of people who play basketball, that's not how many professionals we have. So, for the love of God, people, what happens? People fall in love with photography because of this. And then what do? They graduate in their eyes, they move on to a better camera. And next thing you know it, they're full on into photography. So, like I said, photography will never die. The tools, that's what's you have to decide what's gonna be obsolete and what's not.
Of course, it's difficult for the industry. Now, if you look at it from an industry perspective for a minute, it's difficult for manufacturers, to keep innovating and to keep, making, you know, high tech professional camera bodies when the market keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. This is the other reality of it. This is like um, it was the downfall of the complete elimination of that whole market segment of, point and shoot cameras, for example. That whole segment just disappeared, and I'm pretty sure that was probably, as far as the big, companies were concerned, Nikon and Canon's probably their most profitable market segment that,
Well,
it just
that acts in wildlife portraits or wildlife photography.
yeah. So from an industry perspective, that could potentially be quite difficult though. And, do you think there's a realistic chance for that pro level camera segment to survive in
Off
that
the
respect?
phone with Bart Feldman from TNF Camera in New Jersey.
Mhm.
You know what they're doing now? They're bundling Luminar Neo in all the products because their attitude is you buy a camera, you gotta learn how to edit. Here's the software to go with it. His sales are still sky high. People are still gravitating towards higher end cameras. Now, I will say in Luminar Coffee Break, the show I had yesterday, somebody made a comment about one of the Sony cameras came out. It's a bridge camera. Sony, I guess they're no longer going to do, um, and again, I just what they were telling me on the show, not Sony themselves. They want to move away from the bridge cameras and stuff like that, the point and shoots. Well, this camera was 5 grand. And I'm like, I don't care that's like in the US, you had a Camaro, which was a really nice car, but then you also had a Vega, the Chevy Vega. The Chevy Vega kind of looked like a Camaro. It kind of looked like it, but it wasn't a Camaro.
Yeah.
When all said and done, it was still a Chevy Vega. You know, was the Vega RS that cost just as much as a little higher class Camaro.
Mm.
And people were buying them. Like, wait a second. Well, it's not even close to the Camaro, but yet you're spending that kind of money on that car. Just spend a few extra on that car, but people will buy what they want.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thoughts that I have about a very specific electric car company that I cannot name. Because yeah, plastic fantastic is what I'm saying. There are many options that are much better and cost less money. Why would you do that? I don't know. With all the stuff that's been going on, and it seems like the speed at which these developments, these technologies are coming at us seems to be accelerating quite dramatically. If I just think the way that AI has integrated itself into our lives, not only in photography, but generally in our lives, so not only as far as imagery is concerned, but in every aspect, of our lives. So I use AI now. I use ChatGPT way more often than Google, which is incredible, because not too long ago I used to Google everything. A question that I had, I don't know, what's the capital of, I don't know, the Hindu Kush or something. I would previously have Googled it. Now I ask AI. In fact, now I weirdly have or have a conversation with Buddy, my own personal AI. Apparently, you know. Um, if you think 10 years ahead, where do you think we're heading with this technology? What is technology going to be like in 10 years' time? Given that AI
Oh,
has only been around for like 2.5 years or something,
yeah, I
which is
can't wait. Well, AI's been around for a while, but it hasn't been implemented for
yes.
the last few years. Those Meta glasses. Hey, Meta, where's the closest Italian restaurant near me? Well, you have three of them. Blah 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 blah. That's awesome, but then it's not there yet where I could say who's Kirsten Lutz. Now I can do that with ChatGPT, and a whole bunch of stuff of you comes up in there. Thank God that wasn't back when I fought back in the day. I was a prankster, so that would have been pretty bad. But somewhere on the internet, there's talk about you, what you do, and all that. All ChatGPT and all the AI is doing is finding it and then cultivating that knowledge. And there it is. You know, my own teammates. Vanelli, these reports are so long. They're very detailed. So I'll tell you what I'll do from now on. I'll just put a not even 15-second read summary at the top of the page. If you feel in that summary you want more information, then you can read what's perfect. I don't want to write that summary. Hey, ChatGPT,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
teammates want to learn more about this. Just give them the overall view that they can read in 10 to 15 seconds. What am I really trying? Because remember, I work for a Ukrainian company. Language barrier. They used a magic wand in one of the articles we were talking about. I'm like, really? So if you could have the magic wand, what would you want it to do? I'm like, oh my God. We always called it the tragic wand. In Photoshop, the magic wand sucked. No, we don't want the magic wand. I don't want the magic wand. What are you talking about, Vanelli? I said, you asked me if I wanted the magic wand. I don't want that tool. No, like abracadabra. I go, oh, a magic wand, not the tool. Oh, but do you see how in their mind, I said, oh, we call that the wish. If you can make a wish, oh, okay, don't call it a magic wand because that's a tool. In Photoshop, that was never successful. So if you're asking if I want to put that in Luminar Neo, the answer is no. Because they were wondering, why wouldn't you want a magic wand? And when I gave them the whole reasons why, they're like, oh, miscommunication. ChatGPT would have fixed that problem. I'm talking to my Ukrainian coworkers. Make sure they understand this. And boom, it does it. So, and like you said, I do use it for photo shoots. Hey, I want to do this really cool shoot. What are some cool ideas? What are some posing? What's some lighting? What can I do differently? Try this. Oh, wow, that's so cool. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, ChatGPT, there's 7 fingers on that person's hand. Nope, you messed up.
I think that having something tangible in your hands, there's something that it's really quite to me as a photographer, it's really important to have something like something actually something physical in my hands that takes the picture for me. Um, it I don't know, it just taps it allows me to like it's almost like it's a filter, and it allows me to filter my own creativity through it in a weird way. I don't know if that makes any sense, um, but I feel much more comfortable holding an old camera like the one that you held up earlier, um, and go through the slow process rather than just flipping out a phone or even, wearing glasses in a sense. To me, that's spy thriller shit. Having glasses that record everything you see, where you probably get to the point where you just point your eye, your pupil at something, and it will
I
just
wish they
record
had
that.
that. Oh, they don't. Yeah, because I had to do this. I looked really when I'm doing the food prep, I gotta put the camera on the bridge of my nose, and I have to go like this as I'm cooking, so you'd have a better view. So I did get the Insta 360, not the 360 one, but it goes like a body cam, like the police have.
Right, yeah.
That I thought that worked out good.
What's really cool about fighter pilots' helmet, visors,
Oh, yeah.
they have this thing where basically it tracks their eyes, and then if they look at a target, the gun will direct itself, you know? That's a pretty cool technology. I mean, that should be in glasses like that. You just look at something and the camera automatically just rearranges itself and films up. I can see that being useful. I think you'll trip a lot of people up with that as well, though. You
No,
shouldn't be looking at that, or well, my wife says. For photographers, who feel overwhelmed by all of these changes, because it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff's happened over the last few years, and again, in a really short period of time. Um, what's your best advice for staying relevant amidst all of this onslaught of new technology?
find your passion, find your why, right? And you and I did an episode once on a show that we said, "You're not bored, you're not burnt out, you're just bored."
Right. Yeah.
Right? You're not burnt out, you're bored. So find your passion, find your why. Um, you know, you know, not too long ago, my one goddaughter, she passed away. Um, so all my other godchildren are trying to um comfort me, which I love. I love that. Don't get me, I love it to death, but they all want to do things. Hey, Uncle Rob, let's go to the butterfly garden. Hey, Uncle Rob, could you teach me this? Uncle Rob, could you? And I love the fact that they're embracing it. Butterflies. I mean, okay. Now you tell me we're gonna do a bunch of portraits, of gladiators and all this other cool stuff. Yeah, that'd be I'm pumped. But I'm excited because they're excited. So where's my passion? Where's my why? What's my motivation to go tomorrow? I'm gonna make everyone lunch. We'll breakfast first and make everyone lunch. We're gonna bring it with us. We're planning at least in 8 hours, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. That's 4 hours. Somebody else is driving so I could work in the car. When we get there, they have my undivided attention for 4 to 5 hours. So we're going to plan an 8 to 9 hour day. Why am I excited? I get to spend time with my godchild, with my cousin, and with a good friend of mine, all doing photography. Find that passion, find that why to keep yourself relevant. And then as a content creator, I am going to use those glasses to record video on how to photograph butterflies. What are the top 3 tips? What's the best way of editing them? I'm going to use a mobile phone, upside down, plant it somewhere. I brought the planipod. You saw that on my beach shoot,
Oh, yeah.
to where I didn't want to use a tripod. I've set that planipod up, put my camera right on it, tilted it to where I made that thing look all contortion, and beep, there it was. So when that couple sat down right in my shot, yeah, I joked with them, but technically, all I had to do was this: move just a little bit, got the frame shot. They're out of the frame, no problem. If that were a tripod, well, yeah, then I have to maneuver it totally different. I don't want to. I'm in the pathway. I don't want to mess with people. There's that technology. What more? Getting up that early in the morning, you know that. I wake up at 5 a.m. anyways. So in Florida, sunrise was 6:30. Blue hour was around 5:45, 6 o'clock, 5:45. I got there at 5:30. I was ready. Now, if I'm not used to waking up that early, I don't know if I'd want to do that. I don't know if that would be my. So you have to find something that you love to do. Now, if you called me and said, "Hey, Vanelli, we're in England, we're going to do this, this, and this," it's a 3 a.m. shoot. I'm pumped. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. You're out there. We're going to do this beautiful Hollywood cinematic style scene of London with two couples running down, you know, uh, one of the alleyways or something in London. How cool is that?
Incidentally, that's
That
exactly what we have to
motivation,
do.
right? That motivate. Heck, 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's do the Northern Lights when we were in Iceland.
Yeah.
Yes, by all means, sign me up for that. You push a button on your phone that says "Wake me up" if the Northern Lights are out there. They said you'll wake up.
That was I tell you what, that was actually, I remember this, when I was, we were shooting up with Dave Williams, up in the Lofoten Islands. That was an incredible thing because, to be honest, we were shooting all day. In the whole week that I was up there, you can probably count the hours of sleep that I got on one hand. It was
And were you exhausted?
no,
Nope.
not at
Pumped.
all. The weirdest thing, it was literally like, because the thing with Dave was, Dave basically, he's phenomenal in the way that he works. He tracks all of these data points, right? And it could be that it's like it's 11 o'clock at night. In fact, good example. This happened all the time when I was up there with my wife. Only like a couple of months ago. Literally, it'd be midnight, half past midnight or something, and I get a text message from Dave. The Northern Lights out. 20 miles from here. Be ready in 5. And we're like, "Oh my god, it's 1 o'clock in the morning." Sure, but, was it a problem? Nope. You jump in your long johns, and get yourself Arctic ready, which is a whole
Yeah.
kerfuffle, but yeah, you're out there 5 minutes flat, in the van.
Here's the thing. If those Northern Lights don't show up, if he didn't have that technology, the first time, like a Florida boy
Yeah.
who's used to 90-degree weather in Iceland or in those Nordic places, you get me out there one time
Yeah.
and it's a bust. It's a failure. Mm, you ask me a second time, I'm gonna go, I don't know about this. If it's a failure the second time, by the third time, I'm gonna say, what are you, insane? No, let's figure this out. But if I get out there the very first time and those shots are absolutely amazing, that motivation is gonna carry me through.
But anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, for, coming back. I'm sure it won't be the last time. We'll do this again.
You got it, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, folks, that is it for this episode of the Camera Tech Podcast. A huge thank you to Vanelli for sharing his thoughts on the evolution of photography tools and what the future might hold. Are cameras becoming obsolete, or will they always have a place in the creative process? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, and if you're watching on YouTube, then hit me up anyhow. Hit me up on social media. Join our Facebook group. Join us on Blue Sky, wherever you see Camera Shake Podcast branded about. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend who loves photography as much as you do. And you must love it if you're still watching it now, or if you're still listening at this point. I'm sure you must love photography. There's no way around it. And make sure you don't miss any future content. Make sure you sign up for our mailing list over at camerashakepodcast.com. Plus, if you'd like to support the show, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/camerashake. Every little bit helps us keep creating amazing content for you. So, thanks for tuning in. And as always, stay creative, stay inspired, keep shooting, and I'll see you next Thursday.